They told you loyalty is everything, that staying true to your friends, your team, your cause, no matter the cost, is the mark of a real person. They said if you stand by your word, never waver, never betray, your honor will carry you to greatness. And you believed it. You tied yourself to people, to promises, to ideals, thinking loyalty would shield you, elevate you, make you untouchable. You called it integrity. You called it strength. But Machiavelli would call it something else. He'd call it a chain. You forged yourself, locking you to a system that thrives on your predictability. Because here's the brutal truth. Loyalty makes you readable. And in a world where power belongs to those who shift, adapt, and strike without warning, loyalty isn't strength. It's a target painted on your back. If you want to be dangerous, unstoppable, untouchable, Machiavelli would say one thing. Stop being loyal. Start being strategic. Loyalty is only noble when you're the one writing the rules. But most people aren't. Most are loyal to systems, people, or ideals someone else designed. They stay true to friendships that drain them. Not because it builds power, but because they were taught betrayal is weakness. They cling to promises, not because they lead to victory, but because loyalty demands it. They follow codes like scripture, never asking if the code still serves their purpose. Machiavelli would scoff at this, because to him, loyalty for loyalty's sake is a trap. It's not honorable to hold to a bond that no longer works. It's not virtuous to keep a promise that costs you leverage. That's not loyalty. That's servitude, dressed as nobility. Now picture a different mind, a sharper mind. One that sees loyalty not as a virtue, but as a tool useful when it serves, expendable when it doesn't. This mind doesn't stay in a sinking alliance because of honor, walks away when the alliance stops delivering power, doesn't cling to a cause because it's right. It shifts when the cause no longer aligns with victory. It doesn't bind itself to people out of sentiment. It binds only when the bond creates leverage. This mind doesn't feel guilt for cutting ties. It recalibrates. It moves fast when speed gives an edge, slows down when silence builds control. It breaks promises the moment they become predictable, because predictability is how rivals trap you. And loyalty, when worn like a badge, becomes your greatest vulnerability. Everyone knows exactly where you stand. The dangerous man doesn't pride himself on fidelity. He prides himself on control of his time, his alliances, his moves. He's not chained by the need to stay loyal. He's free to shift strategy mid-game without remorse. Would say loyalty is for followers, strategy is for rulers. One keeps promises. The other rewrites the game. Here's how loyalty quietly kills your power. First, loyalty trains you to prioritize others over outcomes. When you're addicted to staying true, you stop asking if the person, cause, or promise still serves your goals. You keep giving because that's who I am. You don't notice the game has shifted. You don't adapt. You stay loyal. And loyalty to the wrong side is defeat in disguise. Second, loyalty rewards sentiment, not strategy. Anyone can stay faithful, but the most powerful minds know when to pivot, when to walk away, when to redesign the entire plan. Loyalty keeps you tethered. Strategy tells you where to move. Third, loyalty dulls your instincts. You ignore your gut because it conflicts with your commitment. You push through discomfort to honor a bond, missing the signal that could have made you lethal. Machiavelli's sharpest players don't follow oaths. They follow results. They ask one question relentlessly. Does this loyalty bring me closer to control, power, leverage, or victory? If the answer is no, the bond is cut. No matter how noble it felt, no matter how long it's been, no matter how loyal it made them look. Because to Machiavelli, the illusion of honor is the deadliest trap. And loyalty is one of the most seductive. Illusions of all it feels like strength, even when it's keeping you weak. Look around. The world is full of loyal, dependable, honorable people showing up for the same friends. Keeping the same promises, fighting for the same causes. They're doing everything right by the system's rules. And they're still stuck, still replaceable. still serving a structure that rewards faithful workers, not powerful thinkers. That's not failure by chance. It's failure by design. The loyal man is perfect for systems of control. He's reliable. He doesn't question bonds. He stays through sacrifice without rebellion. He can be predicted, trusted, counted on, which is why Machiavelli would call him the ideal pawn. Now contrast that with the one nobody sees coming. He doesn't cling to the same alliances every day. He follows momentum. He doesn't stick to rigid promises. He watches for openings. He doesn't feel shamed for abandoning a bond that no longer serves him. He shifts instantly. And because he's unpredictable, they can't control him. Because he's unchained from loyalty, he's always positioned for power. That's the Machiavellian reversal. Loyalty makes you admirable, but only strategy makes you feared. And in the pursuit of power, admiration without fear is useless. If you're showing up every day, is keeping promises just to feel good about your honor, if you're holding to alliances that no longer produce leverage, if you're addicted to loyalty because it shields you from the discomfort of breaking ties, then you're already losing. The game isn't won by the one who stayed truest. It's won by the one who read the board, bent the rules, and adjusted fastest. Loyalty doesn't make you dangerous. Only control does. And control comes not from fidelity, but from flexibility. Weaponized by strategy. The world respects the loyal man, but it fears the strategic one. But while the loyal man is busy perfecting his commitments, the strategic man is perfecting leverage. He's not trying to be reliable. He's trying to bend the game to his will. This is where Machiavelli draws the line. He doesn't reject effort. He doesn't scorn alliances. But he knows that once loyalty becomes your identity, it becomes your prison. Here's how it happens. First, you make a promise. Then the promise becomes your identity. And then your identity becomes your cage. I'm the guy who never betrays. I'm the one who always shows up. I'm the person who keeps their word no matter what. It sounds noble, but Machiavelli would look you in the eyes and say, that makes you predictable. That makes you vulnerable. That makes you mine. Because the moment someone can predict your loyalty, you've lost the advantage. And when? Loyalty defines you. Your rivals don't need to outmaneuver youth. They just need to exploit your commitments. The Machiavellian mind isn't afraid to break its own promises. In fact, it sees promises as tools. Temporary, situational, disposable. Here's what that looks like in practice. If an alliance stops delivering, he cuts it without hesitation. If a commitment loses leverage, he drops it mid-step. If a better opportunity arises, he pivots instantly, guilt-free. Because he knows power isn't given to the loyal, it's given to the adaptive. Let's get tactical. Here are the 3 most common traps where loyalty undermines men and what Machiavelli would do instead. First, the friendship trap. You stick by your friends, defend them, sacrifice for them. You feel like a hero. But here's the catch. You didn't think you followed. Your loyalty was an act of emotion, not strategy. Machiavelli would ask, does this friendship move you closer to real-world power? Does it position you to outthink, outmaneuver, or outleverage your rivals today? Or does it just make you feel like a good person? Noble, he stays loyal only when it serves the next decisive move. That means walking away from a lifelong friend to seize an opportunity, he does it. If it means cutting contact to protect his clarity, he does it. You're not here to impress your social circle, you're here to win. Second, the promise-keeping addiction. I gave my word, so I can't back out. That's not power. That's pride in disguise. Machiavelli would call it emotional leverage against yourself. You've built a prison where breaking a promise feels like failure, even if the promise no longer delivers value. The loyal man says, I can't quit now. I committed. The strategic man says, if breaking this promise gives me an edge, I'll break it instantly. Loyalty is only power when it serves your goals, not your ego. The moment a commitment stops producing returns, you must abandon it without apology. Every day spent honoring a useless promise is a day your rivals gain ground. Third, the cause loyalty lie. They taught you to never abandon your beliefs, to fight for your ideals, to stand by your principles. But Machiavelli didn't die for causes. He replaced them. He didn't honor every ideal. He adapted when a better path appeared. He didn't persist for the sake of conviction. He moved for the sake of victory. This doesn't make you inconsistent. It makes you dangerous. Because while the loyal man keeps fighting for a dying cause, quietly shift to a new one and surpass him without effort. The world rewards those who champion the right causes, not those who champion everything. This is where the Machiavellian mind diverges from the loyal one. He doesn't follow bonds. He weaponizes them. He builds alliances that produce measurable leverage, not emotional comfort. Trains himself to walk away from promises the moment they lose power. He practices breaking his own commitments so no one can track his pattern. Loyalty isn't evil, but unquestioned loyalty is self-sabotage, especially when you're the one chaining yourself. The man who trains himself to break his bonds at will is the man no one can trap, because no one knows when he'll shift, where he'll strike, or how far he'll go to win. So ask yourself, are you staying loyal because it's working, or because it's comfortable? Are you keeping promises to move forward, or to feel safe in the illusion of honor? Are you proud of how long you've stayed true, even if that loyalty builds nothing real? Because loyalty is only power when it's tied to results. Otherwise, it's a cage you built with your own hands. This is why Machiavelli didn't write books about trust. He didn't glorify fidelity. He didn't praise commitment. He praised flexibility, foresight, timing, psychological agility, and above all, control. Because in the real game of power, the man who keeps his word is valuable, but the man who can break it at the perfect moment, he is untouchable. By now, you see what most never will. Loyalty, when followed blindly, isn't a virtue. It's a performance, a socially praised form of self-betrayal. But what makes this performance so seductive is the applause it earns. People see your loyalty and call you reliable. They see your commitments and call you honorable. They see your sacrifices and call you admirable. But they don't see what you've lost. They don't see the opportunities you missed by refusing to pivot. They don't see the power you surrendered to keep your word alive. They don't see the sharpness, the instinct, the edge you buried beneath loyalty's comforting weight. Machiavelli's genius was this. He saw that honor is often a leash. Loyalty is the leash you tighten around your own throat. You think it makes you strong to say, I always stand by my people. But the strategic mind asks, stand by what and why? You say, I never break a promise. But the Machiavellian asks, is this promise still worth keeping, or are you afraid to look disloyal? You say, I'm committed. But he says, good. Now your enemies know exactly how to bind you. That's the danger of loyalty. It makes you visible, trackable, exploitable. In war, the loyal man is the first to be used. In politics, the loyal man is the easiest to manipulate. In life, the loyal man never gains power because everyone knows his next move. So what does the dangerous man do instead? He learns to weaponize inconsistency, not chaos, not betrayal for betrayal's sake, but strategic inconsistency. It looks like this. 1 week he's your ally, the next he's gone. One day he's committed, the next he's cold. One season he fights for a cause, the next he's on a new path. Why? Because confusion creates control. When people can't predict your loyalties, they can't map your moves. And when they can't map you, they start to fear you. Loyalty earns respect, but unpredictability breeds power. And in the game of dominance, power trumps respect every time. Machiavelli believed a man should never reveal his full pattern. He must break his own commitments intentionally so no one can study him too long. He must stay just outside the lines of expectation. If they think you'll always stand by them, step away. If they think you'll keep every promise, break one. They think you'll fight for their cause, vanish. This isn't about being erratic. It's about controlling your image, even when that image is unclear. Because once you create uncertainty, people lean in. They watch you closer. They overthink around you. And that alone gives you leverage. Here's the deeper truth. Loyalty is control over your heart, but strategy is control over the game. Loyalty says, I'll stand by them no matter what. Strategy says, I'll stand by them until it no longer serves me, then strike when the moment favors me. Loyalty builds trust. Strategy builds power. And in Machiavelli's world, power always beats trust. Let's talk about why this idea unsettles so many. The world's advice is built on telling you to stay loyal, keep your word, stand by your people, never betray, repeat, repeat, repeat. But that advice wasn't designed to create rulers. It was designed to create followers. Dependable cogs, obedient players, people who can be counted on not for vision, but for reliability. And you weren't born to be a cog. You were born to be a force, a strategist, a weapon. So you must unlearn the systems that tamed you. This doesn't mean living in betrayal. Machiavelli didn't preach disloyalty for its own sake. He preached intelligent disruption. He didn't say never be loyal. He said be loyal only until it stops serving the mission. When loyalty leads to power, keep it. When loyalty creates leverage, keep it. But the moment it becomes a chain others can pull, a trap you're proud to stay in, a promise you can't break, destroy it. Because no bond, no matter how honorable, is worth your dominance. And no commitment, no matter how sacred, is worth your unpredictability. So if you want to live like a Machiavellian, you must let go of what made you respectable to become someone they cannot ignore. That means abandoning alliances when they start to falter, walking away from loyalty when it stops producing momentum, breaking your pattern before someone else exploits it. Loyalty might help you build trust, but strategy keeps you on the throne. Because when enemies surround you, when plans collapse, when pressure mounts and bonds weaken, the loyal man says, "This isn't how I promised it would be." The Machiavellian says, "Good, now we play my game." By now, everything you believed about loyalty has been shattered. You were told loyalty was honor, that it gave you strength, that it secured your future. But Machiavelli would say that only holds true when you control the terms. When you don't, loyalty just makes you march faster towards someone else's victory. And that's the final trap.
Ow.
The world praises the man who keeps his word, who stands by his people, who never wavers. But the world doesn't give power to that man. It gives him applause, a pat on the back, a nod of approval, then moves him aside for someone more dangerous. Someone who breaks promises with precision, who shifts alliances in silence, who adapts without guilt and changes shape when the game demands it. That man is not loyal. That man is Machiavellian. He doesn't live in a promise. He lives in response. He wakes up not to fulfill a bond, but to survey the battlefield, to feel the tension, to calculate, to strike where it hurts. And if yesterday's loyalty no longer applies today, he cuts it without hesitation, because he understands one thing: power is not a reward for honor. It is a result of clarity, timing, and adaptability. And loyalty, when it becomes doctrine, destroys all three. The truly dangerous man isn't defined by his commitments. He's defined by his ability to break them. He's loyal only when the moment demands fidelity. He's ruthless when ruthlessness gives him the edge. He's unreadable because he's trained himself to defy his own patterns. He doesn't fear breaking promises. He fears being decoded because once your loyalties are known, so are your weaknesses. And Machiavelli didn't build empires by being easy to read. Look at history's conquerors. They didn't stand by every ally. They moved in silence. Didn't honor every vow. They disrupted expectations. They didn't pride themselves on fidelity. They prided themselves on being uncatchable. And those who clung too tightly to their loyalties were crushed when the game changed. Because power doesn't reward the man who shows up for everyone else. It rewards the man who knows when to disappear, when to pivot, when to strike, and when to vanish. Here's the final test. If someone stripped away your alliances, your promises, your commitments, would you still move with precision? Or would you freeze? Would you panic? Would you crumble? Because if your power depends on loyalty, your power isn't real. It's borrowed. And the moment life shakes that foundation, you'll fall with it. The Machiavellian builds his strength on something else. Not fidelity, not honor, but readiness. He sharpens two things above all: his awareness and his detachment. First, his awareness. Studies the players, the stakes, the rules, and he knows exactly which bond to keep or break to tilt the balance in his favor. Second, his detachment from promises, from pride, from the need to be seen as loyal. He has nothing to prove, only something to control. That's why you'll never catch him stuck, never see him fighting for a lost cause, never hear him say, "I have to stay true. I've been loyal this long." No, if it no longer creates advantage, he cuts it, pivots, and adapts. And that's why he wins. So what should you do now? You don't need to betray everyone, but you need to cut the leash of loyalty from your identity. Start asking yourself, every day, does this alliance still bring results? Am I staying loyal because it works, or because it's comfortable? If I had to break this promise today, could I build something stronger tomorrow? If the answer is no, you're not free. You're not in control. You're still just a loyal servant in a world ruled by strategic masters. Machiavelli's greatest warning wasn't about loyalty itself. It was about those who mistake loyalty for power. And his greatest insight: the man who rewrites the rules, not just for others, but for himself, is the only one who becomes unstoppable. So stop being proud of how loyal you've been. 8. Start being dangerous in how fast you can shift, reset, adapt, win. That's not loyalty. That's power. And if they ask how you did it, don't explain, don't teach, don't inspire, just smile. Can't move before they can predict your next step.